Shalom, everyone. Good evening. So happy to be here. Such a joy and a privilege and a pleasure. And my name is Menussi. I'm here from Eretz Israel. And I'm here on a tour. We're launching a new book. So first I have to tell you about the book, then we can go into our topic. It's a new book on Hanukkah. It was written by my Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg from Israel, and myself. He taught all the classes. I adapted them and made them accessible. It's a book on Hanukkah. It's called Dancing Flames, Meditative Essays on Hanukkah. You can see it in the back, so when the class is over, when you have to go, just make sure you go past the book and you take a look at it. And it's a really, really original and very profound book. It contains 8 essays, one for each night of Hanukkah. And each one delves into a different aspect of what Hanukkah is all about. And believe me, it's the most original book on Hanukkah you've ever read. It's nothing like you've ever seen. There's one essay going into what's the difference between the light of the candles and the warmth of the candles and what they spiritually signify. And there's another essay on all the candles of Judaism, how they come together, starting with the menorah candles, going to the Shabbos candles, and the Havdalah candle, and the Bdikat Chametz candle, and all the way to the Hanukkah. And it's like a journey from the innermost dimension of the soul all the way to the shining in the outside world in Hanukkah. And there's a very profound mystical essay on the dreidel. The dreidel is like this funny game, but it has meanings, and there's a whole lot about how Greek culture is not just pushed away in Hanukkah. That's the superficial level of Hanukkah, is that the Greeks lost and we won. And we want to push away Greek culture. We want to say no to Greek culture and yes to Judaism. But on a deeper level, it's all about elevating the sparks of Greek culture, of Western culture, really. It's saying that everything that the Greeks had, we want to have it also in Judaism, but we want to have it in a more rectified, holy, elevated way. So it's all about taking, for example, the Greek aesthetics, the whole idea that the Greeks idolized beauty, the beauty of the human body, and the beauty of art, and the beauty of theater. And all this, we're saying, this is, the Chazal said it themselves, that the beauty of the Greeks is destined to be contained within the Jewish world, but with the level, with the light of holiness of the Shekhinah. So all this is discussed in the book, so I highly recommend you check it out, Dancing Flames. Now, I don't know if you noticed, here in sunny California, you don't feel it so much, but it's the winter. It's the winter now. In Israel, there's a massive storm going on. I don't know if you know. In Israel, there's a crazy, crazy rainstorm. I just hear about it from my wife, my family, everything. The people are swimming in the streets. They have gondolas now. It's the new Venice, the Venice of the Middle East. It's now Israel. Now, in the Torah, if you look at the Torah, the winter is devoid of holidays. The holidays start with Pesach, that's spring, and they end with Sukkot, and that is autumn. And then the winter, all the winter months are just an empty slate. But God has other ways of giving us commandments and giving us things to do, and which is not a linear top-down way, that's through the Torah. The other is the non-linear bottom-up way, which is history. Divine providence as operating in the Jewish people in what we go through. And he took care of the silent, the dead winter months. And over time, they're filling up with holidays. So the very first one was Purim. Historically, the first, it's still mentioned in the Bible. It was a debate whether to put it in the Bible or not. But Esther said, please write me down that I should be remembered. And the whole scroll of Esther managed to fit into the Bible at the very last moment. And that was the first winter holiday, historically the first one. Years later, we had another one that's post the canonizing of the Tanakh. We had Hanukkah. Hanukkah came along, there was the miracle with the Greeks, there was the miracle with the cruise of oil, and we ended up with yet another holiday which is celebrated before Purim, but it came historically afterwards. Now, if you ask any Jew in the world, you say, yeah, that's the 2 winter holidays, that's it. But Chabad, Tu B'Shvat was made into a big deal. But it's not as big as a holiday. It doesn't have like a mitzvah. And then, but the Chabad Rebbes had the audacity, the boldness, the chutzpah to say something really incredible. They said that Yutes Kislev, the holiday of Chabad, of the release of the Alter Rebbe from imprisonment, which is much, much later than both Purim and Chanukah. It's the past 200-something years. But they said, no, this is episode number 3 in the series. It's a follow-up to Purim. It's a follow-up to Chanukah. And also, it takes place before, during the winter, but of course, historically, it comes after. And they said it's just the same series is going on. Of course, this is a bold statement to make. It's one of the things that people roll their eyes and they say, the Chabadniks, like they think they're the center of the world. But let's play the game. And let's look at what's going on, assuming that Yutet Kaf Kislev, which we're coming out of, because it's Yutet Kaf, really. It's the 19th and the 20th, and now we're coming out of the 20th. Let's just assume it is part of the series. And by the way, over time, it is becoming like a kind of universal Jewish holiday. Like you see that if you're insistent enough and you're confident enough and you have enough chutzpah, and to say, yeah, this is a holiday. It's always been a holiday. It has to be in the calendar. Every Jewish holiday, every Jewish calendar. It works, and it's becoming massive in Israel. Here, you had a Breslov singer coming to celebrate Yutas Kislev, and the Litvish people are going to celebrate. Everyone is celebrating it. So it's over time, maybe it'll become just as big as Purim and Chanukah. So let's assume it is one series. So what's going on here? So on Purim, we were persecuted with the goal of annihilating the Jewish people, physically annihilating them. It was like the first Hitler, Haman, and he wanted to wipe out all the Jews. He didn't care if they were observant or not observant, where they lived, how old they were. It doesn't matter. He wanted to annihilate physically the Jewish people, and of course he failed. Then comes the second holiday, Chanukah. Chanukah was, nobody wanted to annihilate us. They didn't want to kill us. They wanted to wipe Judaism off. They wanted to re-educate the Jews. And they didn't want to kill anyone. They just wanted to take hold of the education. That's why Chanukah has to do with chinuch. And they wanted to Hellenize us. That's what they wanted. And if you were Hellenized, they wouldn't touch you. They wouldn't do anything to you. So if you're Hellenized, you're part of the Hellenic culture, then that's it. We don't touch you anymore. So they wanted to, in a way, erase the Jewish neshama, the Jewish Torah. Even that is a bit more subtle. They had no problem with people learning the Torah as Jewish philosophy. That's okay. They translated to Greek themselves, but not as a divine word of God, right? That's called Lehashkicham Toratcha, to make the Jews forget your Torah, God's Torah. If it's just a Torah, Jewish philosophy, that's no problem. But if it's something that creates an I-thou relationship, an I-you relationship with God, that they didn't want. But anyway, they attacked the Torah, they attacked our spirituality, and that was their goal. Now, and also it was different. It wasn't in Galus. It was not here. It was in Eretz Yisrael, and they just came in and tried to wipe away the culture. And if we add Yutet Kislev to the series, then we see it's becoming more interesting. It's obviously not about annihilating Jews. It's not about wiping Judaism. It was a conflict within Jews, with Jews opposing the revelation of the inner dimension of the Torah. They thought this is dangerous. It's going to lead to Shabta'ut, Sabbatianism. It's going to lead to heresy. And we should continue only with the revealed level of the Torah, or the Kabbalah that was known, but not the Kabbalah that was made accessible to everyone, which is what Chassidut did. So in a way, the first winter holiday is all about attacking the Jewish body, the physical existence. The second holiday is about attacking the Jewish soul. And the third one, you should have both the body and the soul, but there's a term in the Zohar called Nishmeta de Nishmeta, the soul of the soul, the deeper level, the soul of the Torah, and the hidden dimension within us, everything that Chassidut evokes and awakens within us, that was the attempt to not wipe out, but stop it from spreading and not let it be part of Judaism. Now, of course, we celebrate them in the opposite order. Why do we celebrate them in the opposite order? Because we really have to start in the other direction. If you think that maybe in older generations, when it was just Purim, it was just enough to be a Jew. You need to be a Jew, and that's it. And afterwards, it wasn't enough to just be a Jew. You have to be a Jew and learn Torah. It was, if you don't learn Torah, you can Hellenize. You can say, I'm a Jew, but I'm a Hellenized Jew. So you have to have Chanukah. But then in our generation, it's not enough to be just a Jew. It's not enough to be a Jew with the Torah. You have to be a Jew with the Torah, with Kabbalah and Chassidus. You have to have the soul of the Torah. And this is, in a way, that's the reason we're celebrating them in the reverse order. We're studying Yutet Kislev, which was just now, and then we're moving into Chanukah, and then we're going to get to Purim, because that's really the order that we have to think about it. Now we are in just between the Yutet Kislev and Chanukah, and it's all about trying to spread the light. We'll start with the deepest secrets, and then we want to bring it out in Chanukah, and then want to celebrate the Jewish existence as something that's alive, that's invincible, that's eternal. And in our generation, the darkness has become very thick indeed. And that's me leading into the topic of this evening, really. There was an Irish politician. His name was something Connor, and non-Jew. And he coined a very witty, sharp phrase. Maybe witty is not the best word, but a very to the point kind of phrase, which is now becoming very evident to be that it's true. He said, anti-Semitism is a late sleeper. When it sleeps, it's easily awakened, right? Anti-Semitism is a late sleeper. And it's easily awoken. And I think what many, many Jews in our generation are experiencing, are feeling, when I say many Jews, I mean almost all Jews, I think it's a universal feeling that we have now, is that we were privileged to live in the 70 years in which anti-Semitism took a long nap. After World War II, the world was so shocked, so abhorred by the Holocaust, and the world seemed to be favoring Jews, and anti-Semitism took a long nap. And yes, it mumbled in its sleep during these years. It wasn't totally sleeping peacefully. You could hear mumblings and ramblings and some reminders here and there, but then it would go back to sleep. And all in all, you felt that it's a thing of the past, can't happen again. And but now it's really waking up. And it's waking up in such a way that people find it even hard to believe that what we're seeing, what we're hearing all over Europe, all over America, is something that most of us didn't believe we're going to see in our lives. It's reminiscent of other times in history. It's reminiscent of 1930s Germany and other times. And I spoke with some people whose kids don't go to Chabad schools or Frum schools. They go to state schools or liberal schools. And what they're facing in America, not Europe, are things that, again, were undreamt of a few years ago. Slurs that are coming back, new slurs that are coined, jokes that are made, and it's coming in all directions. So the one direction that we've relatively gotten used to is a kind of weird collusion of Islamic anti-Semitism, which calls itself anti-Zionism, but we know it's anti-Semitism because it has a total double standard. It imposes impossible standards on the Jewish state. That is somehow colluding with all the students in the West that go to very liberal colleges, left-leaning colleges. And they somehow got them with a lot of funding, with a lot of effort to be on their side. And they're chanting all over the world, from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free and all this. But then there's also, on the other side of the aisle, there's an awakening that's very recent, that's almost the past few weeks. We're seeing it, another resurging, is the old kind of white nationalist, anti-foreigner, anti-Semitism. It's not just anti-foreigners, there's a lot of focus on the Jews. And whereas the anti-Semitism that's coming from the Islamic world or the more educated student elite and all this, it doesn't call itself anti-Semitism. In fact, it says, of course, we're not anti-Semitic, we're just anti-Zionism, or we're anti the occupation. And all this, on the people on the right are saying, no, we have to talk about the Jews. It's not just Zionism that's the problem, it's the Jews. And then all of a sudden, the old words are really coming back. So that's the topic of this night. The topic of this night is, how do we understand this new resurgence? And what are we supposed to do about it? Some people say we should fight it. That's one of the questions we're going to ask, is what exactly are we supposed to do about it? But it starts, of course, with understanding it. So I'm going to start with maybe the most important message of this evening, but then we're going to open it in all kinds of interesting directions. The first thing I want to say is that there's an explanation for anti-Semitism in the Talmud. The Talmud says that one of the reasons Mount Sinai was called Sinai is because Sinai is cognate with Sin'ah, although Sinai is with the Samech and Sinai is with the Sin, but they're interchangeable. And then it says that Sinai is called Sinai because on that event, in that place, Yarda Sin'ah le'umot ha'olam. Hatred came down to the nations of the world. Now, this phrase in itself can be understood in two ways. One way is that once the Jewish people were chosen, then by definition goes together, there was a kind of rejection in relation to the other nations. So it wasn't that they hated us, it was that God sort of pushed them away. Of course, we have this tradition, very foundational tradition, that God offered the Torah to all the nations of the world. But they refused. It was too difficult to observe. They knew that they were going to be persecuted. It was not a difficult thing, not an easy thing to take. And so they didn't want it. But then once they didn't want it, and we did, then we were selected, we were defined as the chosen people. So they felt that they were hated by God because they said, you're not the chosen people. Once you're not the chosen people, you feel a little bit hated. By the way, even less loved is experienced as hated. We know this from Leah. We know that Yaakov loved both Rachel and Leah. It says so explicitly that he loved Rachel more than Leah, meaning he loved both. But Leah says, I feel hated. Right? So once you're not chosen, immediately you feel hated. It goes together. But then the other meaning, the other explanation is that it was anti-Semitism. It was Jew hatred, the hating of Jews, which was a reaction of them being rejected, or again, them rejecting the Torah, which led to their own rejection. Meaning, really, what it means. So it means that they were jealous of the Jewish people, and their kin'ah, their jealousy, turned into a sin'ah. If you're jealous, although you were given the chance, and you didn't want it, but you're jealous of Jews. You're jealous of Jews that they have this wisdom. You're jealous of them that they have the secret that binds them together, that keeps them together, that keeps their families so connected, that keeps they have this amazing loyalty, Jews, wherever they go in the world. It's like a network. And subconsciously, they're jealous of this. They long for this. They feel that they would want it. Maybe they don't want all the obligations, but they want all the good things that can come out of having the Torah, observing the Torah. So anti-Semitism, when you boil it down to the sort of the deepest level, you see here that it's a kind of very profound jealousy. But what is that supposed to mean? It's supposed to mean that the reason that it's bubbling up and surfacing in the world is that it's supposed to serve as kind of alarm clock. It's supposed to wake us up. It's supposed to remind us that our goal is to live the Torah, be with the Torah, but also ultimately to give it to the nations of the world. That is the ultimate goal of Judaism. We're keeping it to ourselves. For many years, we're telling the non-Jewish world, this is not for you, go away, this is our secret, you don't need to come to the classes, you don't need to learn about it. They feel it. They feel this message, this kind of thing, this vibe that we're setting out into the world. And it gets them even more angry. In a way, the reason it's all waking up is it's just like a little child who wants, there's a child in the class, in the house, and he's making a big mess, and he's breaking stuff, and he's interrupting the class. And what does he want? He wants attention, and he wants to be loved, and he wants to be given something, and he's frustrated. He doesn't know what to do with his energy. And there's a big difference between what he's saying and what he really wants. You have to read between the lines and see what he means. So that's I think the main idea to look at. But now we want to go a little bit more, and we want to go to maybe the greatest leader of the recent years in Judaism, which is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I want to ask a simple question, which is, what did the Lubavitcher Rebbe say about anti-Semitism? What did he say? He was a Rebbe for 40 years, over 40 years. What did he say about anti-Semitism? And the answer is, hardly anything. That's really the answer. He hardly addressed anti-Semitism, hardly spoke about it. And why is that? And to preface, it's not like he didn't know it or didn't see it up close. He saw it very up close. He grew up in Russia. First it was Tsarist Russia, then it was Communist Russia. Both were anti-Semitic in different ways. Then he lived in Germany during the 30s, as the Nazi Party was growing, as anti-Semitism was growing, as they were blaming the Jews for all their post-World War I problems. He then went to France, and he had to flee France because the Nazis occupied France, and he ran away to America. His brother was killed by the Nazis. His sister-in-law and her husband were killed by the Nazis. And when he got to America, he was here to welcome all the Holocaust survivors. The many, many Holocaust survivors that came to America, and he heard the stories. He had every reason to be a big, fighter of anti-Semitism, to oppose anti-Semitism, to call it out, to speak against it, to explain how bad it is, and to show how it's, everywhere, and so on. But he didn't do this. And why didn't he do this? Because he believed in the principle of not fighting the darkness, but adding light. And he said this. So again, he barely addressed anti-Semitism, but when he did, he said, it's useless, it's pointless to fight it. If you fight it, you make it stronger. If you call out someone as anti-Semitical, they're going to subconsciously say, oh yeah, I'm going to show you just how anti-Semitic I can be. They, in a way, they like it, they relish it. You also give them publicity, because then there's a headline, this and this Jew blamed this and that non-Jew for being anti-Semitic. And then there's a big headline, and it just got a lot of media coverage. And generally speaking, when you label someone, you make them stronger. So now, in the rare occasion that he did speak about anti-Semitism, he gave a beautiful, beautiful reading of a midrash about Purim. So again, we're going to Purim. We're going to talk about all three holidays. It's like the recurring theme here, but it starts with Purim, but it's, well, the principle of adding light is a Hanukkah principle, but now he took a midrash about Purim and said something amazing. So the midrash talks about what happened between Haman and Achashverosh. Haman comes to Achashverosh, says there's this nation, and if you get rid of it, you're going to become very rich. There's a lot of money involved, and it's worthwhile for you to let me sign this order, then we're going to wipe them out. And interesting that Achashverosh says, okay, you do it. Here's my ring. Go and do it, and you can keep the money. I don't need the money. And so it raises a question. So what the Haman was presenting it as if it's going to pay off for you, but then he says, I don't care. Do it for free. You can keep the money to yourself. So Chazal, the sages, they offered this beautiful parable. They said there were once two people, two field owners. Each one had a field. One of them had a problem. His problem was there was a big mound of earth in his field. There was a lot of extra earth. He didn't know what to do with it. The other one had the opposite problem. He had a ditch. He had a big ditch that he had to fill up to cover in his field. And they didn't know what to do. And then they met. And then the guy with the ditch tells the guy with the mound, can I buy your mound? I'll bring some people. They're going to take all the earth. You could get rid of it. And I can fill my ditch. And the guy with the mound says, do it for free. Take it. You should have come sooner. I was waiting for someone to take it. I don't need your money. Just take it away. It's enough for me. And of course, the guy with the mound is Achashverosh, who has these people to get rid of. And the guy with the ditch, for some reason, is Haman. So the Rebbe says the following. The Rebbe says, we can understand the idea of Achashverosh being the guy with the mound. Why? He has 127 countries to run, and the Jews are a nuisance. They're just a nuisance. They get in the way. They have special demands. They have requirements. They have their own. It's like this foreign element that's in. So I want to get rid of it. And if you get rid of it, then you have like a flat plane and a flat life, and that's it. But it doesn't make any sense that Haman has a ditch. Because how does getting rid of the Jews fill the ditch? You have to fill the ditch with something. So to get rid of the Jews, your ditch is still empty. What did Chazal mean when they said that Haman is the guy with the ditch? So he says because the ditch is not a thing. The ditch is a void. And it's a void inside the anti-Semite's heart. And he doesn't know what to fill it with, so he fills it with hatred. It's not a thing that he's trying to get rid of. There are anti-Semites that for them it's a thing, it's a nuisance. These are anti-Semites that it's more practical for them. There's something here, they don't like it, they want to get rid of it. That's a more superficial kind of anti-Semitism. But then there's another one, that it doesn't matter what you do, what you don't do. You take off your mezuzah, you dress like, it doesn't matter. It's not about you. It's the void in their own heart. A very beautiful, very profound reading of this midrash by Lubavitcher Rebbe that explains why it's something eternal and it can never go away. And it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter where you go, because it's not in you. They have this ditch, this emptiness. And what is this emptiness? It comes from not having the Torah and regretting in a way that they refused it and wanting to have it. And the only thing that will really fill the void, that's what is implied by this reading of the Rebbe, is that once they have the Torah, if they have the Torah, that's the only thing that can fill them. It will give them meaning. In a way, that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing some people for whom, like I think more the right-wing anti-Semitism, we said there's a left-wing and a right-wing. The right-wing anti-Semitism is more like the people with the mount. They want like a white America, and proud America, Christian America, and they're saying, let's get rid of the mount. What are the Jews doing here? They should go to Israel. That's what they're saying. They're foreigners here. They don't belong here. They have their own country. Go to Israel. And then we're going to have a Jew-free, Judenrein country. That's like the mount. But then you have the other people that go to all the demonstrations and their rallies, and they don't want you in Israel. They say, what are you doing in Israel? Go in. They don't want you anywhere. Wherever you go, it's not going to be good enough. Whatever you do, it's not going to be good enough. And once they called it Jew hatred, then they called it anti-Semitism, now they call it anti-Zionism, and tomorrow they call it something else, because really the people going through those demonstrations, those rallies, they have a void. They have this emptiness. They're frustrated. They're angry at life. They don't know what to do with their lives. They don't know how to build their life. And so the void is filled with this kind of hatred. By the way, we see the same thing. It happens again and again with Balak and Bilam. Balak and Bilam are a very similar pair. Balak, his hatred of Jews makes a little sense. He heard that we gave the plagues to the Egyptians. We heard that we fought wars with his neighboring nations, and we're on the way to our country. And he's afraid that we're going to take over his country. It makes some sense. We're the mound. We're something we're standing in the way. We're he can't see the landscape, and he's afraid we're going to take over everything. And he has a stake. He's living in the area. Balaam comes from nowhere. He's Balaam. He has no nation. He doesn't live here. He's not confronting the Jews. And for him, it's like this void that he just willingly joins this fight, and it has this blind hatred. So this is happening again and again. So that's the first thing, very deep thing that the Rebbe said. And then going on a more practical level, the Rebbe really surprised people by again refusing to label people as anti-Semites, and the willingness to meet people who were considered anti-Semitical and talk to them. There were senators, there were people that he met, and people told him, "How can you meet this person? He's an anti-Semite. You don't talk to him." And the Rebbe said, when I meet a person, Jew or non-Jew, I meet a person. I don't label them. I see an individual, and I want to influence them for the better. I want to bring out the goodness in them. That's what I want to do. And it can be changed. Many politicians, they have some view, but not because that's what they believe. It's because that's what's expedient or popular, or they think will get them votes. And if you work with them, they get to know you. You can shift them in the other direction. And that's what he did. On the other hand, so that's one aspect of it. He was an optimist. He believed in everyone's goodness. He wanted to bring out the best in everyone. And he believed every person can be influenced, or should be. You should try to do your best to influence them for the better. On the other hand, that's the other side of it. That's the two principles of maybe the Rebbe's approach. He was under no illusions or delusions that it's going to be so simple, such a piece of cake. He was very, very realistic. He was a realistic optimist. That was his approach. He was very, because if you're just an optimist, you're naive and you're going to get destroyed. If you're a pessimist, you're just really a narcissist. You feel bad and you think the world is bad. So, but a realist is not enough. A realist is in between an optimist and a pessimist. But if you're just realist, you're going to end up a pessimist because the world is so bad. So you need to be a realistic optimist. And that was the Rebbe. And the realism was that he was under no illusions that you can get rid of anti-Semitism by just bringing up the goodness in everyone. And the famous question that he got asked in the mid-60s was the time that America, the world, was the most favorable to Jews. It was before the Palestinian movement, before the whole resurgence of the BDS and all this. And the world was really for us and still guilt-ridden by the Holocaust. And someone asked the Rebbe, do you think the Holocaust can ever happen again? And the Rebbe didn't blink, didn't think twice. He said, tomorrow morning. It can happen tomorrow. He was a total realist. And he said, the non-Jews, he said, it's like, in Hebrew it's called mishenet kaneh ratzut. It's like a broken cane. You lean on it, it's going to break. Don't lean on it. Don't count on it. Now, his approach, we can beautifully, beautifully see it in the story of Isaac and Jacob, we just read last week. The story of Isaac and Jacob is that, sorry, not Isaac and Jacob, Jacob and Esau. The story of Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esav, is that they meet after 22 years that they haven't seen each other, or 20 years. And Yaakov is very afraid. And he doesn't know what to do, and Esav is coming with 400 men to kill him. This is like a resurgence of anti-Semitism. He was old, but he ran away, but now it's coming back. And then he does three things. What does he do? It's called in Hebrew, Doron Tfilah Milchama. Doron, he sends out gifts. Tfilah is that he prays. And Milchama is that he's preparing for war, which ends up being avoided. He doesn't have to fight the war. So what does it mean? Doron is what the Rebbe said, try to approach the other person and create a rapport, a connection with him, try to bring out the goodness with him. There's a beautiful phrase used by Abraham Lincoln. And he said, he coined the phrase, the better angels of our nature. The better angels of our nature is that we all have all kinds of angels, and he saw the better angel of Esav. He literally saw the angel of Esav. He found the angel, and then he meets him and he tells him, I see your face. It's like the face of God, like the face of an angel. He saw the better angel of Esav, and he tried to bring it out in the Doron, in the gift. The Doron is trying to create this connection. On the other hand, he was a realist. What is the realist? The realist is that he prayed. He says, I don't know if it's going to work or not going to work. And if not, I have to ask God to help me because it's very dangerous. And then the last thing that he does is prepare for war. So a lot of Jews today, and that's where we go back to the ditch and the mound metaphor, but we can realize it or understand it in a much deeper way than what the Rebbe said, because the Rebbe was talking, he just introduced this idea. But now if we see today, many Jews are saying it should be the opposite. First you fight anti-Semitism. You have to fight it out and call it out. And who are the people doing this that are saying you need to fight anti-Semitism? There's almost like a rule. The less connected you are to Judaism, the more you build your life around fighting anti-Semitism. And the reason you do this is because, in a way, that is your way to be Jewish. Your way to be Jewish, your new identity as a Jew is to say, I'm going to fight anti-Semitism. And we see here the lesson here, just like Purim, which is the threat of anti-Semitism happened first, but we celebrated last. Just like the Milchama is the last thing Yaakov prepares for. And the Rebbe is teaching us that you don't need to build your life for anti-Semitism. If you build your life for anti-Semitism, you're letting him define your identity. Now, this is where we get to the deep understanding. It's not just the non-Jews who have the mound in the ditch. We Jews also have a mound in the ditch. It can happen in us too. If a Jew becomes detached from his own Judaism, far away from his own Judaism, he also has a little bit of a ditch. of a hole in his heart. And maybe he wanted yesterday to be just one of the members of the non-Jews. He wanted to go out into the world and be accepted by the world. And then all of a sudden anti-Semitism is rising. And then he realizes, I can't escape my own Judaism. And then, but he still has a ditch. Why? Because he's not connected to what Judaism means. He's just having, it's just saying, I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to lead my life. And he constructs his identity around the anti-Semite. And this is a very bad thing to do. You can't let the anti-Semite define who you are and build your life around this. And so this is a very important sort of thing to get across. And I can tell you that's how I grew up. When I grew up, as being a very secular guy in Tel Aviv, I remember very vividly this experience. The experience was, I have no idea what Judaism is all about. Judaism is like the missing piece in the puzzle of my life. I have no idea what it means, not what Shabbat means, don't know what the Torah means, not what the weekly Parsha means, nothing. I don't know anything about it. But what I do know, and it's very inculcated, and you hear about it every year, and it's ingrained everywhere, is there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the world. Anti-Semitism, or the fight against anti-Semitism, becomes a replacement for Torah and for your Jewish identity. But of course, the narrative is completely atheistic. The narrative is there's this blind, random hatred in the world. Someone, somewhere in this absurd world, flipped a coin and it fell on the Jewish people. And they were randomly selected to be hated like crazy. And now you get to be the victim. You have this weird masochistic joy of feeling that everyone hates you, everyone is against you. And you build your identity around the fact that you're a victim and you're persecuted and you're chased. And that's a terrible way to build a life, to think about yourself. And I remember having nightmares that Nazis want to kill me, that anti-Semites want to kill me. But it meant nothing to me. Like, it meant, I felt there was like one big mistake. I was a human being, but for some weird reason, I was mistaken to be something that I'm not. Like those thriller movies or suspense movies, that someone like picks up the wrong suitcase in the airport or wears some wrong jacket, and then he's mistaken to be some enemy of someone, some spy, and then he's chased around. And that's how I felt. I felt that by mistake, someone put a jacket with a yellow star on my sleeve. I'm not a Jew. I'm just me, a person, and I'm a human being. That's what I am. But I'm defined on the outside by anti-Semitism. And then once you realize you can run away from it and it's waking up everywhere, then you start building your life around fighting anti-Semitism. But that is a reflection of the ditch or the void in your heart. Just like the anti-Semite has a void that is filling with hatred, so can a Jew have this void it is going to fill with thinking about all day about fighting anti-Semitism. But we see here that the right order is different. The right order is that I start as a giver, as a bestower of doron, of gifts, meaning I have my Torah, I have something to give. Yesh li kol, says Yaakov, I have everything. Whether even when on the what happens if tomorrow anti-Semitism stops? What are all the Jews who are not connected to Judaism and are fighting anti-Semitism? What are they going to do the next day? They don't know. Like, their life mission is now to fight it. You can't define your life in this way. There was a French famous philosopher, just after World War II. He wrote a book called Anti-Semite and Jew, and he said that the anti-Semite built his life around the Jew that he hates because he finds it's like a scapegoat for all his problems. But then he said something which is wrong, but unfortunately is right for some Jews. He said it's the same for a Jew. There's no such thing as Judaism. That's basically what he says. He says a Jew is defined by all the other people who hate him and don't like him. And of course, he would say that because he didn't know anything about Judaism. By the way, he changed when he was older. When he got older, he had one of his closest students started becoming a Baal Tshuva. He had a Jewish student. They were both, communists. Up until that moment, their arguments were whether you should be a Marxist communist or a Maoist communist. But then this Jew student discovered Judaism, started doing tshuva, and they had lengthy conversations when this French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, if you haven't guessed, was older, they spoke, and he got started to really appreciate Judaism. Sutter had a partner. Her name was Simone de Beauvoir, and she hated this Jewish student that was sort of like destroying the mind of her genius partner, and using the fact that he's old and weak to sort of ingrain him with all these Jewish ideas. But of course, he was very lucid and very intelligent, and he realized some things. But when he was younger and he wrote this book, Anti-Semite Jew, he said that the Jew, just like the anti-Semite is defined by the Jew, it can go in the other direction also. And again, it's wrong when the Jew knows what Judaism is, but if the Jew doesn't know, then unfortunately it can become true. And here we see that fighting anti-Semitism is the last thing you do. You start by trying to awaken the better angels of the other person's heart and of his nature, and then you pray, and then in the end you fight, because sometimes you have to fight. It's part of the things that Yaakov did. If there's injustice, if a Jew is fired because of being Jewish, if there's a festival and they won't let a Jew bring, his movie or whatever, his piece of art, you have to fight it, you have to call it out, but it's not, you don't build yourself around it. It's something that you... And by the way, in the same story about Yaakov and Esav, there's an amazing thing that everyone has to know. It says when they, of course, in the end, they hug and kiss. Esav loves Yaakov, and he embraces him and he kisses him. And then when you have the word, he kissed him, it's one word, Vayishakehu, there's dots over the word. And then Chazal have a bit of a debate, what do they mean? So the first opinion is, it means that it wasn't a wholehearted kiss. He didn't really mean it when he kissed him. He didn't really mean it, which is basically saying every generation they're going to hate us, they're going to persecute us, even when they kiss you, don't believe them, because anti-Semitism is a light sleeper, and it's and on the inside they still hate you. And then comes Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and says something else. And the first part of what he says is very well known, but the second part is not well known at all. The first part he says, no, it's obvious that he hates you. That's not what the dots are for. And he says that he uses the term halacha. It says halacha beyadua she'esav soneh Yaakov. It's like a halacha, like a cosmic law, that it's well known that Esav hates Yaakov. He doesn't like Yaakov. So that's not what the dots are for. The dots are not red lights blinking, warning you, because everyone knows it, that Esav hates Yaakov. What are the dots for? It's green lights going off, not red lights going off. It's saying that through the Doron and the Tfilah, the gifts and the prayers, his rachamim, his compassion, turned, and he kissed him wholeheartedly. So in the same breath that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying, the famous phrase that is always used, it's eternal, anti-Semitism eternal, Esav hates Yaakov. In the same breath that he says Esav hates Yaakov, like forever, he says it can change. If you bring out the better angels of the other person, his rachamim, his compassion can overturn, can change, can have a total flip, and he's going to wholeheartedly kiss you. Why? Because he's waiting for you to give him the gifts. He's waiting for the gifts. He's waiting for you to share from your Torah, from your wisdom, from whatever it is you have. He wants to see you pray. He wants all this to happen, and it's going to soften his heart, and it can overturn. And the Rebbe strongly believed in this idea that even Esav, as much as he's making sounds that he hates the Jews and it's anti-Semitical and all this, don't believe it. Don't take it so seriously. Don't look at reality in such a superficial way. His heart can be overturned. Again, you have to be totally realistic about it and not be under any illusions that it's going to be super easy, and you have to take precautions and all this. But still, that's the realistic part of the realistic optimist. But the main thing, the noun here, is the optimist, right? Realistic is the adjective, and the optimist is the noun. You have to be first and foremost an optimist, even regarding Esav. So I just want to show that I'm not forgetting something before I go to the final. Yeah. Now I want to connect all this to a very beautiful, amazing idea about Hanukkah. That is actually one of the essays in the books. People came late. We have a new book on Hanukkah called Dancing Flames. 8 essays, beautiful essays on Hanukkah, each one exploring a different facet. And one of the essays really connects to everything we spoke about, and it has to do with the fact that our goal, our mission, should be to give over Torah to all the nations of the world. We got used to the idea that we're not supposed to do it, it's not part of our job. But Hanukkah has this beautiful idea that is suggesting, is hinting at the idea that that's really the future mission, starting now, of the Jewish people. So the idea goes like this. We know that there were two opinions about lighting the candles, right? The first is Bet Hillel's opinion, which is you add lights. That was what we do. You start with one light, we had the second one, third one, and you end up with add lights. But we know that Shammai had a different opinion. What was the different opinion of Shammai? Shammai said we have to start with 8 and diminish. Well, what's the idea? He said, I'm learning this from Sukkot. In Sukkot, we're sacrificing 70 oxen representing the 70 nations. We want to give sacrifices in their names, so to speak, so that they can be appeased, they can be accepted by God, because we are praying for the whole world. But we do it in such a way that it's diminishing. We start with 13, going to 12, to 11. You add it all together, you get to 70. You end with 7. And so he is connecting Hanukkah to our mission regarding the nations. And he's saying we need to take all their negative energy and diminish it, and diminish it, and diminish it. And we should end Hanukkah with one candle. Now we know that in the future, that's what it says, we're going to do the halacha like Shammai, not like Hillel. But does anyone here seriously want Hanukkah to be a Shammai kind of Hanukkah, that we start with 8 and finish 1? It's not fun. And also we love Hanukkah that we love. We want Hillel. We love Hillel. We love adding candles. So Rav Ginsburg offered this amazing idea. And he says we can just double Hanukkah. We can have 16 days of Hanukkah. And after we finish with the 8, we can add 8 more days and go down. And there's 2 amazing clues that this is the perfect way to go, and this is the future Hanukkah. The first clue is that there's a story in the Talmud that Adam, in the Garden of Eden, had a 16-day winter holiday. On the surface, it's nothing to do with Hanukkah, but obviously it's everything to do with Hanukkah. What's the story? The story was he was created in Tishrei. Tishrei is autumn, right? Autumn is the days are becoming shorter and shorter. So he came into the world. He didn't know the world. He didn't know the laws of nature. And he saw that each day is shorter than the day before. And he was afraid that God is angry at him for the sin. And God wants to destroy the world. And the days are going to become shorter and shorter until the world sinks into total darkness. And then when it got really bad, he started praying and fasting and asking for forgiveness. 8 days. He fasted and asked for forgiveness. And the final day was the winter solstice. Winter solstice is the shortest day of the year. And the very next day, the day was a little bit longer. And then he realized that God is not angry. It's part of the way the nature is built. There's a cycle. And there's a winter solstice. And then it lengthens again. And that's the way it is. So then he had 8 days of festivity. But the very next year, he commemorated all 16 days as the days of festivity. And then Chazal say this is the origin of all the winter solstice holidays that are celebrated all over the world. Every nation in the world has a winter solstice holiday. And they give it different names and different excuses, but really it's all coming from Adam. It's always around the winter solstice, which is right now it's December 21st. And on that time they have holidays, and apparently it used to be 16-day holidays. Now, you can't not think about Hanukkah, because Hanukkah is winter. Hanukkah is 8 days, and this is all about 2 times 8, and the first one was just 8 days of celebrating. But of course, Hanukkah had nothing to do with Adam. Hanukkah was about the war with the Greeks. It was about the miracle of the cruse of oil, that you thought it was enough for 1 day. It happened to be enough for 8 days. But the fact is that by divine providence, we end up in the winter. And Hanukkah appears like a tikkun, a rectification of all the pagan winter holidays, right? But a real tikkun would have to be a 16-day holiday, not an 8-day holiday. So it makes perfect sense to extend Hanukkah by 8 more days. And then it's going to go all the way up to 8, and then it's go all the way down to 1. A lot of gifts, a lot of joy, yeah. Hang on, that's only clue number one. There's another clue. Hmm? Yeah. 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 You have to diet. You have to diet slowly. You can't just all of a sudden stop the donuts. You have to take it down gradually. There's another clue that it has to be a 16-day holiday. And that connects us to our topic. And that is what happens if you count 8 days from Hanukkah. You get to another important Jewish date. What do you get? You get to 10th day of Tevet, which is one of the 4 fasts that have to do with the destruction of the temple. The 10th of Tevet is when the siege, the Babylonian siege on Jerusalem began. Right, there are 4 fasts commemorating 4 stages of the destruction of the temple. The first is the first historically is the 10th of Tevet, that's the siege. The second one is the 7th day of Tammuz, that's the breaking of the walls, the invasion into Yerushalayim itself. Then you have the 9th day of Tevet, which is of course the 9th day of Av, which is the destruction of the temple itself. And then you have Tzom Gedaliah, the 3rd day of Tishrei, which is the final remnant, the last dying ember of Jewish life in Israel, was also destroyed because the governor there was assassinated. Now, of course, the main one is the 9th day of Av. The one after that is just like the last, like the last dying ember. What are the first 2? So in a way, a beautiful metaphor is that we can imagine the temple is like a bird, and the bird has 2 wings. And one wing is that the goal of the temple was to be a universal home of prayer. That's how it's called. Beiti beit tefillah yikareh lechol amim. My house should be a house of prayer for all the nations. And King Solomon, when he founded the first temple, he said, I invite all the non-Jews to come and pray here. And that we had this horizon. That's one wing. It's a wing that extends all the way to all the world. And on the 10th day of Tevet, that wing was clipped. We were besieged. We were closed up. The world was telling us, we want to persecute you, we want to close you up. And we ended up with just a nationalistic conception of what Judaism is all about. On the 7th day, the national wing, that got clipped. It just became a religion. We were just in the temple. Because you can imagine the receding. First they go into Yerushalayim, then they go from Yerushalayim to the temple. That's like Judaism becoming something only for the religious people. It's only the temple. And then the temple was also destroyed. But now focusing on the 10th day of Tevet, what really happened there? And we know that all the fasts have to become days of festivity. They're going to be overturned in the days of redemption, and they're all going to become holidays. So the 10th day of Tevet is the day that the world convinced us that we're just a national religion, that it's all about us, we need to survive, to the point that many very big, very important rabbis are boasting, they're proud of the fact that we don't want to give anything to the other nations. They're saying, unlike Christianity and Islam, they have the mission or the jihad, and they want to make all the world believe in what they believe in. But we Jews, no, we only believe in coexisting, and the Christians should be Christians, and the Muslims should be Muslims, and we have nothing to give to the world. We just want to be our own little nation. Just let us be. We want to live our own lives. That is a result of the siege of the 10th of Tevet. Because the real goal is, and the real reason behind this siege is that the non-Jews are angry at us that we're not sharing Torah. So they say, we're supposed to come to you. All the non-Jews should flock to Zion, to Yerushalayim, to learn Torah. But if you're not giving us the Torah, you're not teaching the Torah, then we're going to come in a negative way. We're going to besiege you and close up. And then we convince ourselves that it's pointless. We can't do it anymore. And see something amazing. Around the 10th day of Tevet, there were 2 historical events in the history of Judaism that are all about trying to make Judaism universal, trying to bring it to the nation, but doing it in a wrong way. This is just teaching you that's the real mission. what is the first event? The first event is the translation of the Torah into Greek. Translation of the Torah into Greek, the Septuagint, the translation of the 70, took place on the 8th day of Tevet, and it says that the world got dark for 3 days. So it's the 8th, 9th, 10th day of Tevet. And what happened there was that the idea of translating the Torah to Greek and to all the languages is a great idea. Moshe was supposed to translate the Torah to 70 languages. But it was done in the wrong way. It was done because it was a Greek king and he wanted to make fun of the Torah. And also it was 70 people and they all had the exact same translation with the same deliberate mistakes in order to not allow him to make fun of the Torah. It was a bad translation. That's why it got dark. But the very idea of sharing the Torah, translating the Torah is a great idea. The reason it got dark, it was a negative event, was because we mistranslated the Torah. So that happened just around that time. And what is the other event? The other event, of course, is that's the time of Jesus. The birth of Jesus, there's a tradition that it was 10th of Tevet, or something around then. And of course, Christmas Day, it's always around the time. It's a solar calendar. We have a lunar calendar. It's not always the same day, but it's around the same time. Why is it around the same time? Because Christianity was another failed attempt at bringing the light of the Torah to all the nations of the world, because it was done without the mitzvot and with a kind of a human idol that you have to worship. But you see that there's something about Tevet, that it's all kinds of weird negative contortions of the original idea. The original idea is that we share Torah with the world. So Shammai thought about diminishing candles because he thought about we need to take the energy of the nations and gradually soften it and soften the antagonism and the anti-Semitism with light. But the more they become close to us, the less light you need. And so if we count 8 days and we get to the 10th day of Tevet, on the 10th day of Tevet, it'll become a celebration. The celebration is that we're united with all of mankind. And we become the source of light and the source of Torah for all the world. And there's one candle, which is like, we're all one, there's one God. And everyone is a monotheist. Everyone believes in God, in the God of the Torah, the God of Israel. And that becomes the full, perfect rectification of the 10th day of Tevet. Now, there's a little bit of a play there because sometimes Hanukkah ends with the 2nd day of Tevet, sometimes ends the 3rd day of Tevet. So sometimes it can be a 16-day holiday, sometimes it can be a 15-day holiday that you get to 8, you go to 7, you have 2 times that you can play with it. The whole thing, we'll have the Sanhedrin will take care of it. They'll find the perfect way to do it. But the main idea is that the time has come for, Rav Ginsburg calls this the 4th revolution. He says there were 3 major revolutions in Jewish law regarding teaching Torah. The first was writing the oral Torah. It was forbidden, but someone said, we have to do it. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, we can't not do it anymore. Et la'asot la'Hashem eferu Torotecha. We have to change the Torah in order to preserve the Torah. We have to write the oral Torah. Second revolution was that you're not supposed to get paid for teaching Torah and learning Torah because you have to do it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. But at some point, ultimately, it was Rabbi Yosef Karo who said this. It's impossible to do. We need rabbis. The rabbis need to have salaries. We need people learning. They should have people teaching them, and so on. And so he said, "Et la'asot la'Hashem." We have to change this thing in the Torah to preserve the Torah. Second revolution. Third revolution, the sages kept saying, "Don't teach women Torah. Don't teach your daughter Torah. Torah is not for women." But came the 20th century, and we have Rebbetzin Sarah Schneerer, and there were rabbis who supported her. They said it's impossible. They're going to universities. Women are different today. They're learning. They're clever. They're not going to abuse the Torah. They're not going to make fun of it. And there was a big, big revolution still going on. Torah for women, with tons of schools popping up everywhere, teaching very serious, very in-depth Torah to women. So the Rav Ginsburg said, now it's time for a 4th revolution. 4th revolution is to teach Torah to the nations of the world. Not just 7 commandments. 7 commandments that's what the Rebbe kept talking and stressing. But the thing is, we have to be smart about it. How can you teach the 7 commandments without explaining it as part of a worldview, a wisdom, a whole way of looking at the world, which is Torah? Even when a Jew comes into your Chabad house, you don't open the Shulchan Aruch and say, these are your commandments. You talk about whatever he's interested in. You talk about relationships, about the soul, about wellness, about how to pray, about what it means to pray, what it's like to have a neshama. a lot of things you have to talk about. And then you'll get to the commandments. Same with the non-Jew. You have to tell them, we have this amazing wisdom to share with you. It'll help you build your life and your relationships and your family and your community, your connection to God and your prayers and your emunah and your bitachon. We have so much to teach you. And they're thirsty. They're clamoring. They're banging on the doors. They're going to all the wrong teachers because we're not giving out what we need to do. And so this is the total reversal of the fight against anti-Semitism. Instead of calling it out, talking about it, being angry about it, which only gives them publicity, only makes it stronger, we have to completely shift the focus. And the shifting of the focus is on giving and praying. That's the Doron and the Tefillah. Giving out Torah, teaching Torah, and Chanukah is the perfect time to start this, to think about this, and to go all the way with it. And we're going to increase light and go on increasing light. As Hashem, until the world is all lit up.